Thank you for choosing this beautiful wood gazebo from Yardistry. We're confident you'll find the assembly process straightforward as long as you work through each step in the assembly manual. In addition, this Helpful Hints video offers tips and tricks we've learned along the way for handling some of the more challenging and critical steps. In Step 2, when you're attaching the post mounts to the bottom of the post assemblies, keep the bolts loose before installing the pan screws on the inside of the post. It's okay to fasten the pan screws on the inside of the post at an angle. Once the screws are secure, go back and tighten the bolts. It's best to do Step 3 on a raised surface that is flat and solid. Connect the beam short right and beam short left. Make sure you insert the T-nuts into the holes on the beam short left. Get a helper to align the boards at eye level. When they're in alignment, tighten the bolts. Now connect two beam short ends to a beam short center. The T-nuts must go on the beam short center. Get a helper to align the boards while a second tightens the bolts. To complete the short beam assembly, place the two boards together with the longest one at the back. All of the bolt holes should align. Insert long hex bolts temporarily to aid in keeping the beams together. Positioned correctly, the mitered ends should be flush. Insert a screw to hold them in place. If the mitered end isn't flush on the other end, loosen all four hex bolts on the short beam end assembly. Make the necessary adjustments, then insert a screw to hold the boards in place. Tighten the hex bolts before fastening the beam assemblies together with 18 wood screws. Then remove the long hex bolts. It's important to work on a solid, flat, and raised surface for Step 4. Connect a beam long left and beam long right. Insert the T-nuts into the beam long right. Then have a helper align the boards at eye level before tightening the bolts. Now connect a beam long end to a beam long center. Insert a bolt and T-nut in the top hole only. You'll know it's the top because the bottom hole is the one with two gusset holes next to it on the beam long center. Leave the bottom hole empty until part 2. Get some help to align the boards, then tighten the bolt. Repeat those steps to attach a beam long end at the other end of the beam long center. Place T-nuts into the 6 locations on the long beam end assembly identified on page 19 in your assembly manual. When you're done, turn the assembly over so that the T-nuts are on the bottom. With some assistance, place a long beam insert onto the long beam end assembly. Make sure the holes match up. Then position a long beam left-right assembly on top with the T-nuts facing down. Once again, the bolt holes should match up and the mitered edges should also align. Push long bolts through these 4 holes temporarily, then attach the assemblies with 6 hex bolts, but only tighten by hand for now. Turn the long beam assembly onto its side. Once again, make sure the mitered ends are aligned. Use a long bolt for leverage to make adjustments, then secure the beams in place with 3 wood screws at each end. If the mitered ends still don't line up, loosen the bolts in the beam long end and beam long center. Line up the miter on one end, then install 3 wood screws to secure that end. If the other end doesn't line up, pry on the long bolts to get the miters aligned. It may also help to have someone push down on one end. Once the mitered ends align, install 3 wood screws to secure the boards in place. Tighten all of the bolts on the assembly. Then install the remaining wood screws. You'll need 4 people for frame assembly. Make sure you carry out this step in the final location of the structure. Get 2 people to hold the post assemblies while 2 others lift a beam assembly into place. Take a moment to make sure the gusset holes are positioned along the bottom of the beam assembly. When it's a long beam assembly you're installing, make sure to insert the hex bolts in the top hole, then through the hole on the long side of the post assembly. Leave the bottom hole empty for now. It will be used later to secure the structure. Make sure the top edge of the beam is flush to the top of the posts before hand tightening the hex bolt. When you're installing each short beam assembly, insert the hex bolt into the bottom hole, then through the hole on the short side of the post assembly. Once again, leave the other hole empty for use in a later step. When the frame is fully assembled, check to make sure all of the measurements match those listed on the square level and plumb insert included with your gazebo. It should measure 15 feet and 3/4 inches diagonally between posts. At the front and back, which are the longest sides of the assembly, it should measure 12 feet 10 and 3/8 inches from the outer edge of each post. The shorter sides of the assembly should measure 10 feet 10 and 3/8 inches from the outer edge of each post. The post assemblies must be square to the beam assemblies. Spend some time checking each one and adjust the positioning at the bottom to get it right. Make sure the 4 post assemblies are level. Then check to ensure each beam assembly is level too. When you've confirmed that all the measurements are correct, use lag screws to secure each post in place. As you attach the gussets in step 6, take a moment to remeasure the structure and make sure it's level and square. Position a roof-to-post bracket at each of the top corners so that the metal arms sit tightly against a beam on each side. Fasten each roof-to-post bracket with 2 pan screws. Use a solid raised surface for this step. It's important that all the corners are flush, so get some assistance holding the ends of the rafter corner left, rafter corner right, and rafter in place. When they're aligned, attach with wood screws. It's also crucial to get the positioning of the fascia beam assembly right. If the ends don't align properly, try rotating the fascia beam assembly. Once you get the ends to fit properly against the rafter corner left and rafter corner right, attach with wood screws. When you're attaching the end of the rafter to the fascia beam assembly, make sure it's centered over the 2 pilot holes on the fascia beam assembly. If the end of the strap or strap short isn't flush with the edge of the rafter corner left or right, have someone hold the boards in position, then fasten with wood screws. When you're attaching the rafter short right or left, fasten it at the bottom first, where it connects to the fascia beam assembly. Then fasten it at the top to the rafter corner right or left. Flip one of the small roof rafter assemblies over and install roof-to-beam brackets on it. The bracket should be centered and flush to the bottom of the rafter short left, and rafter short right. It's essential to work on a flat and solid raised surface for step 10. Use a flat edge to check the alignment of the fascia beam assembly. If there's a gap like this, flip the beam over. In the correct position, the top of the fascia beam is level with the top of the rafter. Check to make sure there's a distance of 22 3/4 inches between the rafters before attaching the fascia beam. Make sure each corner is flush when you install the rafter corner left and right. Get someone to hold the boards in place, then attach with wood screws. Next, position the strap short large roof in the notches of the rafter corner right, rafter corner left, and the 2 rafters. Make sure the ends don't overhang, then attach with 8 wood screws. Now move the strap left large roof and strap right large roof into place so that they fit into the notches on the rafter corner left and right and the 2 rafters. Don't attach them yet. First, position the rafter short right so that it fits into the grooves under the strap right large roof. When it's snug, attach one end of the rafter short right to the large fascia beam assembly. Then attach the other end to the rafter corner right. Repeat to position a rafter short left into the grooves under the strap left large roof. Attach it in the same manner, first to the large fascia beam assembly and then to the rafter corner left. Next, fasten the strap left large roof and strap right large roof. Get some help to ensure the ends don't overhang the edges of the rafter corner left and rafter corner right. Then attach with wood screws. To complete the step, use more wood screws to attach the strap left large roof and strap right large roof to the rafter short left, rafter short right, and the two rafters. Turn the large roof rafter assembly over. Position a strap brace over the ends of the strap left large roof and strap right large roof between the rafters. Make sure the edges are flush, then attach with 8 wood screws. Install roof-to-beam brackets on both of the large roof rafter assemblies. They should be centered and flush to the bottom of both rafters, the rafter short right and the rafter short left. Gloves are essential for this part of the assembly because roofing material can have sharp edges. To prevent scuffing, remove the clear and blue protective film from both sides of each aluminum part just before you use it. If you're using a power tool, be careful not to over-tighten the roofing screws because that can damage the roofing panels. We recommend hand tightening the screws until they're snug. Step 12 should be done on a flat, solid, raised surface. Position the long panel right onto the small roof rafter assembly so that it's flush to the side of the rafter corner right. The holes on the rib should be centered on the rafter, and the panel should overhang slightly over the bottom edge of the fascia beam assembly. Now move the long panel left into place. One rib should overlap a rib on the long panel right. Make sure the other side is flush to the rafter corner left. Once again, the bottom edge will overhang slightly. When the panels are aligned, attach them with 4 roofing screws in the locations shown here and on page 33 of your manual. Take care not to over-tighten the roofing screws. Place the right short panel onto the roof rafter assembly so that a rib overlaps the long panel right. It should be flush to the edge of the rafter corner right and overhang slightly at the bottom. Repeat to install the left short panel. It's okay if the panel edges aren't quite flush with the rafter corner left or right, but make sure they don't overhang. If they do, loosen the roofing screws at the top of the assembly, then remove the other 3. Adjust the roof panel so they're aligned correctly, then replace the roofing screws and tighten. In step 13, get some assistance to position a roof edge left and roof edge right along the bottom of each small roof panel assembly. Make sure the ends meet tight in the center and the other end sits flush with the outer edges of the fascia beam assembly. Attach with roofing screws. Peel away a small portion of the backing on a strip of weather seal, then begin attaching it to the rounded bottom of a ridge clip. When you're done applying the full length of weather seal, attach the ridge clip to one side of the small roof panel assembly so that it aligns with the angle of the rafter corner right or left. As long as one end is flush to the top of the roof panel, the other should not overhang. Take care not to push down on the ridge clip. Attach it with 5 wood screws, then repeat to install a second ridge clip. It's important to do step 14 on a raised surface that is flat and solid. Place a middle panel onto a large roof rafter assembly. Make sure the holes at the side of the panel are over the rafter. In the correct position, there will be a slight overhang on the top and a large overhang at the bottom of the panel. Now place a long panel right on the assembly, then a long panel left. They should be flush to the edges of the rafter corner left and right, and overhang the fascia beam assembly along the bottom. When the panels are aligned, attach them with 4 roofing screws in the locations shown here and on page 37 of your instruction manual. Repeat to install a short panel left and right on the assembly. It's all right if the panels aren't perfectly flush with the edges of the rafter corner left or right. Just make sure they don't overhang. If they do, loosen the roofing screws at the top assembly. Remove the other 3 screws, then adjust all of the roof panels. When they're aligned correctly, replace the roofing screws and tighten. On one of the large roof panel assemblies, place a spacer top so that it's centered on the top and flush to the outside edges. Attach the spacer top with 3 wood screws. When you're attaching the roof edge left and roof edge right at the bottom of a large roof panel assembly, make sure the curved finished edge is the one over top of the roof panels. Attach them with 20 roofing screws. Peel away a small portion of the backing on a strip of weather seal, then begin attaching it to the rounded bottom of a ridge clip. When you're done applying the full length of weather seal, attach the ridge clip to one side of the large roof panel assembly so that it's on the same angle as the rafter corner right or left. The end of the ridge clip should be flush to the top of the roof panel. It must not overhang at either end. Attach with 5 wood screws, then repeat to install a second ridge clip. Do not attempt step 16 in windy conditions. You'll need 4 people and 3 ladders for this step. Position 2 of the ladders near the posts supporting one long beam assembly and the other in the middle. Assign one person to remain in the middle throughout the step to support the roof panels. On each short beam assembly, measure 4 feet 11 inches from the inside of a post and place a mark on the beam. Now get 3 people to lift a large roof panel assembly over a long beam assembly. Be careful not to scratch the roof panels or scuff the beam with the roof-to-beam brackets. As the person in the middle holds the top of the assembly in place, make adjustments so that the corners are centered over the roof-to-post brackets. Part 2. Next, lift a small roof panel assembly, the one with the roof-to-beam brackets on it, over the short beam assembly so that it fits snugly against the panel already in place. The center roof-to-beam bracket should line up with the mark you made on the short beam assembly. When the edges of the 2 roof panel assemblies align, connect them with 3 hex bolts. If you're having trouble getting the corners or bolt holes to line up, have the person in the center push up on one or more of the panels to find the right fit. Install the remaining large roof panel assembly. Adjust the 3 panels as needed. In the correct position, the top edges of the 3 panels form a square. To make it easier to install the peak loop, place a piece of tape over the nut. That way it doesn't fall out during installation. Lift the last small roof panel, the one with no roof-to-beam brackets, into place over the short beam assembly. Get someone to push up on the peak loop so that the top of the panel slides under the edge of the peak cap. It may take some effort to get the 4th panel in place. Have the person in the center push up on one or more of the roof panel assemblies to achieve the right alignment. If the last small roof panel still doesn't fit, try the following. Check to make sure it does not have roof-to-beam brackets installed. If they're installed, remove them. Try loosening all 6 other hex bolts installed during the roof panel assembly. That may allow for more room to adjust the panels. Refer back to steps 8, 10, 12, and 14 in your manual. You'll want to make sure all of the parts of the roof rafter assemblies are flush and that the roof panels don't overhang the roof rafter corners right and left. You may want to refer to the colored insert that came with your gazebo. It will help you review the measurements for frame assembly and ensure that all the posts and beams are level and square. Once the panel assemblies are aligned and the corners are flush and sit on the roof-to-beam brackets, tighten all of the bolts. Now, with some assistance to lift the roof panel, insert 3 roof-to-beam brackets under the last small roof panel installed. The roof-to-beam brackets should be centered and flush to the bottom of each rafter. Attach them with pan screws. It's important to get the roof placement just right. If necessary, push up on the peak to ensure a tight fit. Each corner should be aligned over the center of the roof-to-post brackets. Make sure all of the roof-to-beam brackets are flush and tight to the beam assembly. When the roof assembly is in place, attach it with 2 wood screws at the end of each fascia beam. For better access, loosen the roofing screw on the roof edge before inserting the screws into the fascia beam assembly. Remember to remove the plastic film from both sides of a ridge cap just before you're ready to install it. If the ridge cap doesn't slide on smoothly, add a few drops of liquid soap on the inside of the cap before reinstalling. It may also help to have someone push up on the middle of the roof assembly. If the ridge cap still won't go on or an obstacle is blocking it, try bending the ridge clip up on one side. Hook one side of the ridge cap over the bent side, then push down on the other side until it catches. Slide the ridge cap on, then have someone push up on the peak cap long so that the ridge cap can slide underneath it. Then push down to bend the ridge clip back into place. Place a tie wrap bracket tight to one end of a tie so that the ends fit together tightly. Attach the tie wrap bracket with one pan screw through the hole closer to the middle of the tie. Now get a helper to hold the tie in place against the rafter so that it's level. Attach the tie to both sides of each rafter with the appropriate hardware. Pre-drill through the other hole on the bottom edge of the tie wrap bracket, then attach it with a pan screw.